Muito agradecido, professor Jorge Queiroz, por esta apresentação também muito objetiva, muito pragmática e que nos deixa alguma preocupação, mas também alguma linha no horizonte, portanto, alguma perspectiva no horizonte. Se me permite, eu iria continuar em inglês, porque temos aqui uns convidados em inglês e eu não sei se o Kees, are you there?
Yes, I'm connected. Yes.
Okay, great. I wonder if we have some questions from here, but I have some questions. I'm involved for quite some long time in the Douro Valley with some companies, and regarding to your presentation, you talk about the average temperature, but I wonder what would be the temperatures on the soil, on the canopy, at the level of canopy. If we have an increase of 2 degrees on average temperatures, what could be the temperatures in the soil? What could be the temperatures at level of canopy? Because this has to do with all the pragmatic solutions that you brought to us today, and I would like later on to discuss these ones. So please, would you comment on this topic? Not just the temperature, the average temperature that we talk every day, but indeed the temperature that can affect the photosynthesis, the respiration of the leaves when the temperature raises, I don't know, 45 degrees or something like that. And in the soil, the evaporation of the soil, the little amount of water that the soil can capture, and then later on will evaporate very quickly with these high temperatures.
So regarding soil temperatures, there are obviously differences in soil temperature, and the amount of water in the soil is a very important driver of the temperature in the soil. For instance, a clay soil has a lower temperature than a sandy soil or a stony soil. What also matters is the temperature in the root zone. So if you have a shallow rooting on a shallow soil, then generally the temperature is higher in the root zone than if you have a deeper rooting vines. Now, there is an obvious effect of the temperature in the root zone of the phenology. For instance, if you compare with the same air temperature, different soil temperatures, then in places where the soil is warmer, the budding in the spring will be earlier and the whole cycle will be earlier, and the grapes will come to ripeness earlier in the season. But of course, there may be other effects of temperature in the root zone. Now, regarding temperature in the canopy, of course, you are totally right. What matters for the vine, for the photosynthesis in the leaves, and for the grapes is not so much the temperature in the weather station, but the temperature in the canopy. Now, we've quite been doing some investigations with temperature sensors inside the canopy, and there can be substantial differences in temperature in the canopy depending on the row orientation and also, for instance, the exposure of the bunches, whether if you do de-leafing, if you take away the leaves in front of the bunches, then of course the bunches will be exposed to full sunlight and they will become substantially warmer. So, of course, my presentation was a little bit short, so I had to focus in only 15 minutes on all possible adaptation, and it's obviously that there are much more possible adaptations than the ones I addressed in my talk. But for instance, playing with leaving more or less shade on the bunches can also be a way to decrease the temperature. But what's a little bit tricky is that to have good grape quality in terms of phenolic compounds for red wine making, but also in terms of aromas, you need light on the bunches. Light is generally good for good quality, but high temperatures is not good for good quality. And it's not easy to decouple the effect of light and high temperature, because as soon as you expose the bunches to full sunlight, they also become warmer. So maybe another possible adaptation, which I did not address, but which people are experimenting in California and in Oregon, is to use misting, to spray very small amounts of water in the air just to decrease the temperature. So it's very different from irrigation. Just misting to decrease the temperature.
Yeah, I'm amazed because you touched in a, I will give the floor to the audience here and to the other colleagues, but I'm amazed because you touched in the last point of something that I'm probably idealistic, but I'm imagining having drones spraying misty, little amount of water and atomized water to that doesn't reach the leaves because it's so micron, it's in nano particles of water that can evaporate and decrease the temperature at the canopy level. I'm imagining a system like that, so I don't know if it's feasible or not. We have to prove that. But this has to do with something that for more than 20 years I'm fostering these thoughts and actually do some practice and experiments about this. It's you mentioned to increase the trunk weight, the trunk height. But in my opinion, I think, and regarding the Douro region, eventually go into the more bench type form of grapevines. Instead of bringing the canopy high, we could eventually do like in Rioja in Spain, a more short, a more benchy type grapevine, which creates a microclimate underneath and covers the grapes indeed to avoid the exposure to the sun and to the high temperatures. I don't know what you think about this idea, but it's this training the grapes in a different system. I think it's a very important issue. So please, could you address this topic as well?
So, canopy management is obviously a very interesting terrain to look for possible solutions for adaptation. So I mentioned the gobelet-trained bush vines, and surprisingly, if you go to the scientific literature, there's very little investigation which has been done on gobelet-trained bush vines. Even the scientists, they were never interested in this training system. I don't know why, because it's very well adapted to high temperatures and dry climate. And I think even the microclimate, I never did measurements inside for the microclimate of gobelet-trained bush vines. But for instance, you never see sunburn on those vines. So it would be interesting to do some measurements and look at the temperature in the bunch zone and the exposure of bunches to light. But I think in the gobelet-trained bush vines, there is a good balance between enough light for quality, but not too much direct sunlight on the grape to avoid excessively high temperatures. But there are probably other training systems which are maybe more easily to mechanize, which can also be very well adapted. And in terms of training system, you need to look for a training system where you have enough light penetration. Shade is never good. Shade is not good on the leaves. Shade is not good on the bunches. But you should find the right balance, avoiding extreme temperatures and still have enough light. And there's definitely room for some more investigation in training systems to reach that goal.
Okay, so we have to move forward. Is any question from the audience here, please? No questions here. I don't know if Jorge has any question. We have to move to the next session. I don't have questions from the colleagues in distance. So, Kees, thank you very much for your presentation, for your comments, and it was a very rich content from yours and a very good contribution to the adaptation to climate change in this region as well. Thank you very much. We'll keep in touch.
Thanks for your invitation. Hope to see you soon in
Yeah.
Europe.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Bye bye.